Next up we have a sunflower, and this one's another 7-step tutorial, same as the last one, the cosmos. And I'm going to show you again each step, and the last step being again the shading. So we've got 6 steps to draw everything out, and then the 7th step is to shade. So let's just jump into step 1. And for this one we're going to start with the seeds right in the centre of the flower, and then branch out from there and draw all of the petals surrounding that, with the stem coming out below. So we need to start in the centre of the page for this one, in the centre here, and leave space all around for the petals to surround it, and then enough space below for the stem and the leaf. So I'm going to start about here, and really what you need to do for this one is to start with a single circle like so. Just draw a little empty circle, and then from that centre one we're going to go around the whole of the outside with a bunch more little circles, and we're just going to keep doing that for a few rings around that centre point. Just keep going all the way around like a little spiral until we get to a point where it feels like we've got a good enough surface area. And kind of the technique I use for this is start smaller in the centre, then each ring around just make those little circles a little bit bigger each time, not too much bigger, just a little bit. And as with everything else we've drawn so far, we don't want anything to be uniform or symmetrical, just organic and natural. I think I'm going to do another ring around, and that should be good for this one. So as you can see, these ones are a little bit larger on the outside than where we started in the centre. So, so that is step 1. And step 2 is to draw some of the seeds around the outside of that. So I guess the technique for this one is to be a little bit more sketchy. So we really need to make some dots around the outside, and actually for this one we use a bit of a thicker fine liner. So I've got a 02 here. Again, doesn't have to be that exact same size. Any size that was bigger than the one you were just drawn with would be fine. And this is just going to help fill up the surface area a little bit quicker. So I'm going to start by creating some kind of seed shaped dots. Just ring around the whole outside area. And I'm going to use the pen in a variety of thicknesses, so applying a bit more pressure when you first tap the pen on, and then drag it out to a little bit of a taper in one direction, then do the same inwards as well. Kind of just do it a bit sparingly around the whole of that surface area first to kind of get the shape of where we need these to be. So see, we need a little bit more surface area up here, just so it's a bit more balanced. And these again, just there's no uniform symmetricalness to this. It's all about building up some texture really, which is the most important thing. So again, I feel like we still need some more up here, just to make it all balanced, so it looks like this is in the centre. And now that we have those roughly drawn out, we're just going to keep going in and just making sure they're coming out from those seeds in the centre, and just in all the white areas just add these short quick lines and keep changing the direction of the pen, the way you're flicking it towards the centre or towards the outside, just to get a variety of shapes. But what we're trying to achieve here is just to get a good bit of texture. These seeds will be a bit of a longer seed than the ones in the centre. Connect some of these areas here as well, so we haven't got that white space in between the centre part and that part. And now that we have this part kind of blocked in, I'm going to go in and sort of draw in some thicker seed shapes, just dotted around, just so it creates even more variation in the texture of this part. And just dot those sparingly around anywhere where it looks like there's a little bit of a gap or white space. And this just also creates the illusion of these seeds kind of being on little stems coming out from the centre there. And that's a good time to look back around and make sure it's all feeling a bit balanced. Add in some short, quick line marks on the edges as well, just to make it look a little bit fluffier. And that looks good. Let's add a little bit more up here. There we go. So switch your pen back to the middle size we have. For me it's a 0-1. And step 3 is to start to add in the petals around the outside of this. So I'm going to start at the top, and I don't want to put it directly in the centre. I'm going to offset it a little bit, just a little bit up here. And I'm going to kind of start it from behind this area so it doesn't have a closed base. It kind of feeds out from behind this. And I'm going to draw this petal up towards the top of the page, create a little point, wiggle the pen a bit and bring it all the way back around. And then from there we can add in some of our lines. I'm going to add one up here, one there, just one on this side, one coming up from behind here for the centre point, and another one there that's a little bit shorter. A good tip I like to use really for drawn petals is to kind of, instead of trying to work your way all around, I'll kind of do one on one side and do one on the opposite side, so we can make sure that everything will fit in and it's feeling balanced. So now that I have one up here, I'm going to draw one opposite down here. So I'm going to go in, start from behind there again, arch it up towards the top to a point, curve it down a bit, wave the pen back down to the bottom. And you kind of want to try and make sure they're roughly about the same height as each other. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to add in our line up there, a little one down here, another one coming from the centre, a little one coming from there, and another one down here. Okay, now we have those opposite each other. I'm going to create one up here, opposite there, and one there, one there. So here sounds like a good point. Again, we're going to curve it around, wave it around a bit up there, and then when you come up this way you can start to see, like, imagine like it's circling around, so this is about a good height for that to be the same. Arch it back around and then curve it back down here, so you want to leave a gap in between each petal, the ones that were drawn at this stage, because there's going to be some more in the next stages that appear behind it, so you want to leave that gap in between as well. I'm going to add our lines here on this side, a one up here, a longer one coming from the bottom there, and another one there as well. And again, now that we've got this one up here, we're going to draw another one opposite, and for this one I'm going to draw it a bit narrower at the base. So I'm going to start it here, curve it out, bring it back into a point, and then curve it all the way back down to that narrower point at the bottom there. Just going to bring it in a little bit more to disguise it into that centre of the flower. Draw a line up here, one this way, a little one from that top point there, another one in the centre, and a shorter one there. So now we've got these opposite, we've got this space here to draw two opposite that way as well. So again, I'm going to do a little bit of a narrower base, curve it out, narrow a bit back in to a point, wave it down, and then curve that back out to there, leaving that space in between as well. So not all these petals are the same shape. We want to create differences between each one so they're not all uniform. Again, keeping things natural, keeping it organic. So we've got some different lines on that one just to really make it feel a bit more flowy. Now we've got our last petal for this step, which is going opposite down here. I'm going to curve that out from that point there, bring it up to a point, and then curve it all the way back down there. And then we're going to add in our lines here. One from the top up there, a longer one down this side, and a shorter one from the centre there. Maybe just a little one up here as well. Okay, so now you can see we've got some gaps, which is where the next step's going to come in handy. And of course, don't worry that some gaps are bigger than others. That's what we want to achieve in order to give it the most natural feel. So in step 4, we're going to start to fill out these gaps and build up the petals behind these ones. These are just the forefront petals. So in this step, we're going to start by adding one here behind these ones. So I'm going to start it out at this point, bring it up, and then end it behind this one here. You can add a little bit there just to add that base of the petal joining the seeds. Add in a line in the centre, bring one from the top, one from this side, maybe a little one hidden behind there as well. I feel like we have space to add another petal behind here, so I'm just going to add a line there to create that illusion, and then just draw a little point coming out from behind there, and another one there. Draw a line coming up through the centre, and then just a little one from the top and a little one from the bottom. Some other areas that I feel like could have some petals behind as well. Maybe one up here, so start it from behind that one, bring it to a point, and then curve it back down and end it at the edge of that one there. I'm going to add a couple lines in the centre there, a little bit of a one coming from behind there, and then 2 shorter ones from the point at the end of the petal as well. And I think up here I'll add one as well. So I'm going to draw a point and then create a little bit of a difference by adding a little scallop at the top, and another one there, and another one there, and this will be the end of it, and arch that back around to meet that petal there. Draw a bit of a line disappearing behind that petal in front, and another one there. And let's add another one here and come around from this point. Again, creating some differences in the end of each petal, so I'll arch that one off there and bring it back up from that centre point there to another little peak. Add in our lines, like so. I think just a couple more over this side now, so I'm going to add in a petal here, arch that back around there, a little line here and here. Going to add in a little line there to kind of show the separation between the petals, and a little line from behind that one there. Last one now for this step. Little peak behind there, just connect it back to there, and I'm going to add in a little curve down here as well, just again for that separation in the petals. Add a line here, add one there, and then 2 smaller ones that side. And then step 5 is the last of the petals. We're just going to add a few more peeking behind because, you know, sunflowers, they have so many petals and so many layers, so we really want to portray that in our drawing as well. So we're going to add some smaller ones again in the gaps in between. So I'm going to add one up here, arch that up to a peak and bring it back down. Just add some little lines from the top and from the bottom. I'm going to add a little one peeking out from behind here, just a tiny one, little line there, and a little one from over here. You can add some as well that have a little bit of a curve as well, so they're not all pointing in exactly the same direction. I'm going to add a little one here, just little arched hills in between. And another one here, a little bit of a narrower spiky one there, just because you would have some appearing from behind the stem as well. It's nice to add those in. I'm going to add a little one just peeking out there. and one here. Just a couple of lines on that one coming up from the centre. A little bit of a bigger one here, so we had a bigger gap. Again, a couple little lines. And you can look around and see if you feel like it feels balanced, if you want to add any more in just to fill out any gaps and make it look as full as possible. But for mine, I think that's good. So let's move on to step 6, and that's adding the stem. So again, we kind of want to pretend that we're drawing an invisible line to mimic where the centre of the flower is to the bottom, so we can start to add in the stem. So I'd say about here is where we want to start our stem. And for this one, we want to create a bit of a wider kind of like bulb shape at the top, and then we'll do the same over here, just mimic that, and then it's going to go down into a narrower stem like so, and then we'll follow that one with the same on this side like that. And that's a stem. Then we're going to come off to the left here with a leaf, which is a different shape to one we've drawn so far. So I'm going to start bring it out to the centre like so, and then just draw the vein inside the whole thing first. And then I'm going to create a sharp arrow at the end of that like so. I'm going to bring that out to the left and then create some spikes like so, just kind of waving the pen on a downwards angle until you get to about this point. So you want to leave a little bit of a line here, and then connect that back in there, so you've got a bit of a stalk coming out to the stem of the flower. So we're going to do the same on this side. Again, bring it out and then connect it there, so it creates a bit more of a natural shape. And from these points we're going to draw some quick lines towards that centre vein from the dips in each of the edges of the leaf. And then we're going to add some more veins in the centre, again not being uniform, not one matching the other side, so create a little bit of variation, a little bit of movement in each line so they're not super straight like so. So now we have the outline of a flower. We can go in and start to add the shade into the areas where we think there'll be the most. So definitely coming out from the centre part of that flower more so. So we're just going to extend some of the shading into these petals. Start with the most forefront ones first. So. And then the ones that are behind, we just want to add a little bit of shading to the edges where they're closest to a petal to mimic them appearing from behind. So I'm just going to go around the whole thing and add in those darkest areas, again always keeping the lines angled with the same movement of the petal, never straight. And the ones that are in the very background, I'll add the most shading right in between the middle kind of V where it sits behind the two petals in front of it. Same down here. And the ones up here as well. So I'm going to add some down here. And again, this is just roughly adding in the placement of where the shading will be, and then we'll go in with our finer fine liner and really buff it all out as such. Bring some up this end here, add a little bit down there, a little bit behind there. Some on these background petals that are really just peeking through. We don't want to add too much to the outer edges of each petal, so it'll be the lightest, really concentrating it more towards the centre. And again, using these lines we've added in as a good starting point for that. Some up here. some coming from this side. And kind of where this centre flowers are sitting, it's kind of a good rule of reference to focus it in between these lines we've added, and maybe leave a bit of lightness on the outer edges of each. And add some up here. You can go in and add a little bit next to some of the lines we've drawn in, generally on the outside of them rather than the direct centre, as you can like kind of start to visualize that this part will be more raised than that part, so it would catch more light naturally. So more so on the outsides. And generally where you've got more than one as well, like this one here, you kind of rule is to like alternate it, so like light, dark, so then it has a almost like a ripple kind of effect. I'm gonna add a little bit up here. Again, light, dark. Generally the more centre one, if you've got 3 for instance, would be the lightest area. Just going to extend that up a little bit, add a little bit of shading behind here, so it might be a bit folded there. Yeah, generally the last step takes the longest, I guess, because it is all of the shading but in one step. But as you get used to it, it does get quicker once you've got like your general technique down for this. So I think that's enough for the darker shading on the petals. And I'm going to add some little points of interest on the top of the stem here, and add in some darker parts where they would be a little bit more folded in, maybe a little bit stronger shading in there, and then just extend a little bit from where it would sit behind the petals. And I'm going to kind of make the illusion that it's a little bit thinner maybe, and just really shade behind this line I've just drawn in, just so it looks a little bit less bulky. And leave it there for now, and then add in the rest of that with our next fine liner. I'm just going to add a little bit in between each of the veins here as well. Like so. And now we're ready to add in the last few details with our 005 fine liner. And generally, again, where you've drawn these darker areas, we're just blending them out and extending some parts of them. Not the whole thing, just a little bit. And sometimes as well, this works even better when your fine liner starts to run out a little bit and you get even more of a brushy effect, and you don't get as much ink flown through, which is sometimes creates a better effect as well. Like, I just like keep these fine liners forever, and even if they don't have much ink left in them, I'll still use them just to really create more of a brushy effect, if anything, less ink. And generally I would go back around everywhere I've added in those darker shadows, just really, just to blend it all out. I just don't like it looking too blocky. And then again, you can add in some little points of interest if you think some areas are looking a bit empty. And I'm going to add in a little bit here, which I missed before, from behind that petal. Extend some down here. maybe from the center and a little bit behind there. Again, making sure that all those center parts are connected behind those seeds. If there's any little gaps that start appearing once you add these details, just fill them in. Just helps to make it a little bit neater overall. I'm almost done with the petals. Then we'll add those final details to the leaf. Great. You can have a quick scan round and add in any more little fine details where you think would make a nice difference, maybe on some of the ends, but just a tiny bit, not much. And I'm going to extend the shading down here on the stem, and again just kind of block this out a bit, maybe add a few lines like so, going into the center of the stem but not touching the other side. And then lastly, on this leaf, I'm going to extend these lines that we drew from the center vein, extend them out, and then for this side I'm going to curve them more. The other side were a bit straighter, just with the kind of angle the leaf's at. I'm going to extend that top line more towards that point at the end as well there. And then do a few next to these little dashes we've added on the side. Extending them towards the centre, not filling in that whole space, just a little bit. I'm going to add some heading up towards the top from the bottom there as well, kind of fill in that gap. Maybe just add a bit more of a block of shadow there where it connects to the stem. And again, you can really use this technique to mask anywhere you think doesn't look quite right and you want to join together a bit more. Yeah, I think that's about it for our sunflower. The next one, I'll see you there in a second.